Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dirts of Gaming and the second of the League Start test videos. This time I'm looking at a Lightning Strike champion. Now the build was initially meant to be Frostblades, but the single target was abysmal through the campaign. I absolutely hated it. So I switched to Lightning Strike halfway through because you get the double strike, doubles your DPS, you get some shock. It's not as comfy as Frostblades because of the chill and freeze, but it's much more damage early on. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect very much from this build, especially since the goal is to pick up the first 2 Void Stones on a 5-link and limited gear, and obviously as few deaths as possible. So in regards to leveling, as I mentioned, I did start with Frostblades, but I did eventually switch to Lightning Strike, and then once I got some Vaal Orbs to Vaal Lightning Strike. When I level these sort of builds, I take as much help as I can from the tree to try and stack damage and combine masteries that give me more or increased damage. You really need to because these skills are super weak early on. So I took the dual wield mastery that gives you increased damage if you have 2 different weapon types. What this also does is means you any rare one-handed weapon that drops you can use, so it actually helps in upgrading your gear. And I went precise technique. There are also some ignite nodes that you can take with the mastery to get 100% increased damage, which next time I'll probably do, but eventually I did start needing to add life into the build because I don't think I took any life nodes until about, level 40, 42, something like that. And then we kept this dual wield set up well into yellow maps, respec into claws once I got all the bases together. Now the campaign was pretty rough. I didn't die many times, 2 to 3 maybe, but it just felt not great all the way through, and I felt like every single node on the tree I had to go damage to actually get through bosses nice and quickly. Again, with the last playthrough, this is all essence crafted gear. There's a Perseverance Unique belt, which is dirt cheap at League Start. And obviously I mentioned we'd be buying a 5 and a 6-link chest, but every other piece of gear we're trying to self-craft. What I've also done is made the decision to stop once I'm happy the character can do a basic altar farming strategy. The main reason being is I'm starting fresh accounts to do these runs, and trying to do Atlas completion without a map tab is something I don't ever want to try and do. You don't know where your maps are. It's not very easy to immediately see what ones you're missing, what you need completion on. You also have very limited space in your stash tab. So I think get to Eater and Exile, get them down, then put a 6-link on, get some better gear crafted and see how it holds up in T16 maps. So this playthrough I stopped at level 90 in just under 13 hours with 12 deaths. And that was with Eater and Exile down in just over 11 hours. Now I'm not rushing in these. These are not rushes to Eater and Exile. These are let's gear so that it at least feels comfortable. This is also a new account, so I had to set up the vendors in my hideout and I had to complete the quest in Act 2 to actually get a hideout. Now, it should really be 10 deaths. I had 1 death due to lag and another one due to a map mod that is just the most BS thing in the world, which is enemies reflect ailments. And you don't know these enemies have it until you hit them, and then you get insta-frozen, 50% shock on you, and you die. Overall, the build felt pretty naturally tanky thanks to being a champion. And even though the nerf to Lightning Strike a few leagues back did definitely damage it, it is still one of the better melee gems thanks to the fact it can double hit, and it's got really good clear from projectiles even with a limited amount. Now it did have far less deaths than the Tornado Shot build, and to be honest I don't think it needed quite as much gear. However, even with multi-strike, onslaught, blood rage and adrenaline, melee builds still feel clunky. They just don't feel nice to play. In terms of the progression, as per the bow build, I went precise technique early on because the more damage you can get for free, the better. I killed Eater and Exile on a 5-link precise technique setup. The DPS was pretty low, to be honest. They were fairly slow kills, but the build easily handles everything that they can throw at you. So as long as you can dodge balls on Exarch and you won't have to do more than 3 or 4 phases, nothing should kill you really. As long as you can do the in-between phases of both the bosses, they're very easy, comfortable, but it's just a little bit long and a little bit boring. So once I got that done, I then switched to a 6-link and transitioned to crit just to see what it felt like. All I did for the crit transition was just craft crit on the claw that I had, so I didn't really do anything special, and I still don't have an anoint on my amulet, so that is a boost of damage that we don't have, that you would have realistically in a League Start scenario, and I'm pretty sure my gems have not yet hit level 20. Overall, if you insist on playing a melee skill, I do think if you're not going Bone Shatter, Lightning Strike on a champion is probably as good as it gets at League Start for cheap. because I do still think it's the strongest melee gem to league start with if you want something that's elemental. So what we'll do is do a quick map showcase. Now, I did just run one, and it's made me realize that Wrath of the Cosmos is definitely not a good idea. I ended up with something like 250% Fizz's extra chaos, so everything that breathed on me when I have minus 60% chaos resistance killed me even as a champion, because you just don't have any defenses for that. So I've unfortunately took my deaths from 12 to 14. We completed the map, and this is another reason that when I'm starting out, if you just want to altar farm, you do not need to do anything with your maps. If you wanted to, you can make them magic to give a bit of extra pack size, but it's not worth making them difficult. The idea of these maps is you want them to be as quick and as easy as possible. So we'll just go and re-roll one to get something that's not horrible. More rare monsters is pretty nice. I'm also going to take off Wrath of the Cosmos because I really don't feel like it does a great deal. At this stage, it will give you a few more rewards maybe, but if you're still trying to level up, it's going to cause you some problems. So we'll go and we'll do a mausoleum, see if we can get a couple of nice altars to spawn. And as I say, this is kind of going to be the standard test that I do. I did want to try and do Atlas completion on everything, but without a map tab, it is absolutely horrendous. Trying to see what maps you need for completion, even just finding what tiers your maps are and which ones you haven't completed and stuff like that is just an absolute pain. So as you can see, it is clunky, even with kind of multi-strike, onslaught, increased onslaught effect. Adrenaline is still, because it's melee and PoE, have just got a serious problem with making melee good. Doesn't feel that great. It's not something I want to consider league start, and I just wanted to give it a go. It did work better than I thought, but it's still not something I would want to play. Oh, we're stuck here. That was close. Didn't realise I was running against a dead end. Luckily, we're pretty tanky. Doesn't look like we're going to get any altars. So as you can see, you can see the clunkiness by playing it. And it could be because I'm running multi-strike, but without multi-strike, the attack speed is just awful. It just feels really, really bad. And I just feel with this build, it doesn't feel comfortable enough to league start. Yeah, it gets the job done, and actually it was better than expected, but until they fix this attack speed issue with melee, I don't think this is ever going to be a build I'd want to play at league start. I've missed half the map, so we'll go and clear that first. And then we'll get out and we'll look at the gear. So as you can see, because you can double hit with lightning strike, the single target, even on 4 mod rare monsters, is plenty good enough for minimum investment. And you could do things like you could add Mediocre Suffering, get a better claw, because my claw's pretty bad. There's lots you can do, but I do think this sort of build, because I played quite a high budget lightning strike this league, it just needs too much for it to feel decent. Even with a bit of investment, it's probably still going to feel pretty clunky. And it was the same with Frostblades. Frostblades felt great clearing. This dude is crazy tanky. Frostblades felt really good clearing, but it felt absolute junk for bossing, and it's never something I would want to league start. I know people love it. I really didn't like it at all. Especially at league start when you don't have access to a lot of gear that makes Frostblades bearable. Blocks attacks, lovely. Right, cool. So I think we're done. 5 monsters left. Yeah, I think we can bail out of that. So yeah, overall, didn't love it. Was nowhere near as fun as the bow leveling. So next time around, we'll do something different. Maybe totem spells, something that is nothing to do with attack-based builds where I don't have to worry about weapons. So I'll just go through the gear just to give you a general idea of what I eventually settled on for like my farming setup, I suppose. So we actually got a pretty decent claw early on by crafting with essences. We got triple elemental prefixes, but then not any suffixes that are any good. Global crit multi is okay, but ideally you want attack speed and crit chance, because you need the crit chance and attack speed. Really without it, as you can see from the showcase, it feels clunky. So we've got like mediocre LE damage rolls, but they are triple, although a double roll with LE pen would be better for this sort of build. So overall, I'd say it's probably slightly above average weapon for just crafting, but I can't really help what I end up crafting with essences. I was running out. I couldn't really carry on, so we settled for this claw. The helmet, as you can see, trying to roll some implicits, got absolutely nothing. And we've just gone for fire, resistances, and we've actually have to craft some strength to be able to run determination. The shield is pretty bad. It's just life and resistances. Ideally, this is where you'd get your armored immunity and some spell suppression. Rings are not too bad. This one's strength, resistance, crafted life. And this one is some flat damage, all early res, and a bit of resistance, but no life. The body armor, again, I've just spammed essences. I was running haste because I found increased aura effect as an implicit when I was rolling, but grace and determination felt better overall. So again, these implicits do nothing really at this stage. And then we ended up rolling an attack speed with the lesser embers, so we just kept it because it's a very limited time playthrough. But it is just, yeah, life and resistance gear along with a perseverance belt to give us onslaught. I don't have any jewels in the build, and because we're trying to stack armor and evasion, we're running both a granite flask and a jade flask, along with a diamond flask and then a quicksilver flask. Now, in terms of the 6-link I settled on, it is Vaal Lightning Strike. I did go Nightblade in the end. I felt it better, even though the buff is quite situational. Sometimes, you know, it's obviously really powerful when it runs down to a few percent. It doesn't do very much, but overall, I think it felt better and helped the clunkiness of the build. And then we've got an added cold. Ideally, I would like 3 reds, but I had a pure evasion base and it would have just cost me too much to color it with the limited chromes that I had. So we've got an added cold. We've got Trinity, obviously. Then we've got multi-strike and inspiration. I don't like multi-strike that much for lightning strike because it doesn't do anything for the Vaal skill. But as I say, it gives you so much more attack speed that I feel it's almost mandatory on a bad version of the build. We've just got faster attacks and whirling blades as our movement skill. And then we have a dash somewhere else. So the auras I'm running are determination. We are running precision, grace, and then a free defiance banner. That's all we're running at the moment. I should be leveling my precision up a bit more. Dash, as I mentioned, along with blood rage for frenzy charges. And we got second wind, corrupting fever, and life tap to proc the 50% health loss to get adrenaline. And then we've got inspiration, mark on hit, ancestral protector, and then assassin's mark. So yeah, bog standard setup. I think the 6-link is okay. I think it could be better, but I didn't want to spend too much time faffing. I just wanted to see how the build felt, could I get it done, get everything that I wanted to complete, and move on to the next build. So the POB for my finished character will be in the video description, along with the POB when I killed Eater and Exile. I'll try and put some level entries in there. I don't know if I went the best way, but I do feel if you want to level melee, you go all damage. If you try and get lots of life and don't take too much damage on a tree, you're going to take so long to get through the campaign because bosses are going to take you 5 minutes to kill. It's just super annoying. I'd rather die a couple of times, get it done a couple of hours quicker. So if anyone watched my first video, I mentioned the importance of a loot filter, especially if you're trying to gear yourself. So for this lightning strike build, I'm just going to go through a very quick filter that I'm going to build so that I can basically show all the items that I want to. First thing we're going to do is just put strict. Strict is still quite soft, but for a very, very first few tiers of maps, I think it's absolutely fine. Go and look at what style you want. I think normal is perfectly fine. But if you wanted things to stand out a bit more, you could go for one of the others. So I'd normally either go for Azurite or normal. Just to be a bit different this time, we'll go for Azurite. And then the only thing I'm going to do is just add in the bases I want. There's a few different ways to do this. I normally just do add additional show hydrals and then go show base types. So we're going to go claws. So we want to show Imperial claws. And then I also want to show another type of claw, which is Gemini claw. They're not quite as good, but they have a decent base crit, so they can also work really well. We're going to go armor and evasion. So we're going to want Triumphant Lamellar as a base. We're going to need some boots. I cannot remember what they're called. I think they might be called Dragon Scale, but I'm not sure. Worm Scale, maybe. No, I'll tell you what. Let's do this properly. Let's go onto PoE Wiki. And we can have a look what the boots are. So go PoE Wiki to boots. We want armor and evasion because we're going to try and stack both of them. And we can see they are, yeah, they're Dragon Scale boots. So we'll go back in. We'll show Dragon Scale boots and gloves. And then we're going to show Pigface Bassinet, which is again armor and evasion. And then for shields, I like to go Lacquer Buckler, but just for the movement speed, but it's totally up. So it's also a bit easy to get some of the stats that we want. So we'll go Lacquer Buckler. And then that's kind of it. We don't really need to show anything else. If you wanted to, you could add something like heavy belts on there because we're going to need some strength. And then you're just going to design it so that it pops a little bit. You'll do a sound, but just a bog standard one. You don't want to fool yourself into thinking you've had an amazing drop. So just something like that would be fine. Or if you wanted it to stand out a little bit, you can change it. So we can do 8 to make that long sound, which you won't be able to hear because I haven't got my volume on. But yeah, you just pick the sound that you want. I'm going to go for 8 because it's slightly different to any other sound that I've got. And then you just want to change it so that it pops compared to other items. So I'll change it from this because this just looks like a bog standard item. So all I'll do, we're going to leave the text blank because this will be what determines the rarity of the item. So if it is normal, it'll be white, magic will be blue text, rare will be yellow. So we're going to change the background slightly, and we're obviously going to need something where blue, white, and yellow don't look too bad against the background. So we're actually going to go for red. And then we'll just do a border of blue. So this will be my items that I want to pop on the loot filter. Eventually you're going to get rid of these because you're going to have a few bases, but you do want some bases to be able to craft on. This is the easiest way of doing it. At least item level 68, which will be map, so that works absolutely fine. And for now, I don't really want to change anything else. I'm happy with kind of the standard strict loot filter. So we will just give it a name. So it'll be Lightning Strike early maps. And then that will do. We'll sync and download, sync it to the account, and that will go in, and then it will turn up back in the game. So when there's highlights from the early mapping, hopefully this loot filter should be showing up and the red items should be dropping so that we can pick them up for crafting. So that covers off the testing for the Lightning Strike Champion. So overall, it was just over 11 hours to get my first 2 Void Stones. And then I mapped through to just under 14 or 15 hours just to make sure it was comfortable in T16 maps. Overall, yeah, not something I would recommend. It didn't feel very good at all the whole way through. There are certainly worse league starts, but there are a lot of better league starters. And I've reiterated it over and over again. The way that Melee is programmed, the attack speed is just horrendous. And even with as many buffs as I could get to increase it, it still felt clunky and not a particularly fun or engaging playstyle. It's something I wanted to get out of the way. It's now been tested. There'll be some brief POBs in the video description, but yeah, don't recommend anyone else try this. But it did actually perform better than I expected. I did not think we'd get Exile and Eater down on a 5-link. However, I think a lot of that was down to champion defenses. If this was on a more squishy character, I think it would have been much more difficult. So that's it for this one. Hopefully the next one is more fun and something that's a bit more viable for people for a league start. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.